Are we too stuck in our thoughts? Just how much of our lives are we losing while being trapped inside of our own minds? I feel like oftentimes we lose day in expectation of the night. And that is to say that in life we often think a lot more than we act. We allow ourselves to overanalyze and overthink everything that's mundane within our lives, and then we get to a point where we lose a lot of our life. That's not to say like you shouldn't think. I think thinking is a amazing tool that we should always use. However, it's not something that we can always, you give too much power to. Like just the overall fear of expectation that we put on everything in our lives. I feel like expectations drain so many possibilities. We kind of limit the things that we think will occur, and we limit the ways in which we want things to proceed. And that's why we're often left with distraught. Expectation strips everything away from the experience. It makes it ingenuine. That type of expectation just either makes you react in a even more negative way, or it makes your positive even less positive. It's like assumption does nothing for reality unless you have evidence. Assumption about things that aren't even, grounded in reality ultimately just strip away parts of your day. And the more and more we allow our minds to be trapped within itself through overanalyzation and overthinking, the more we lose. He who thinks all the time can only think, or he who thinks nothing but thoughts thinks whatever. Same thing. Just thinking for thinking's sake is just thinking. He who thinks all the time has nothing to think of but thoughts. And the more and more we allow ourselves to be riddled within our thought, the more and more we lose. So I guess the implication would be to move forward through life and try to limit our expectations that we place on everything. I feel like a lot of our anxieties and stresses are projected into our expectations. We often expect things to go wrong because we're afraid of that circumstance. We don't often posit too much positivity in what the reality might be because we have fear for what it could be negatively. But I feel like that does nothing. He who suffers, he suffers more than necessary that suffers before it is necessary. And I feel like a lot of us suffer before it's necessary. We take this thought into our head and we treat it as if it's a reality, and we proceed as if that thing is occurring to us right now rather than the positive. And if you know anything about the law of attraction or anything like that, oftentimes that type of worry will just make it more likely for you to experience that type of negative circumstance. Just like if you're always looking for negative, then that's what you're going to find. It's easy to find what you're looking for. Most people do it instantly. The problems we try to solve, they're often easily solvable. We just go about it the wrong way. We try to look for reasons we don't want something to happen rather than changing our perspective into just imagining the thing that we do want. And in imagining what we do want, I don't see any wrong with that. It's like a peace of mind. I feel like positive expectations, if any at all, should be used over negative. I mean, it's easy if you have some type of evidence for a negative circumstance or a reasoning why it may happen, then that's one thing. But if you're judging the expectation and creating the assumption solely based on how you don't want it to happen or your own anxieties or own insecurities, then ultimately you're doing nothing for yourself but causing premature suffering. There's no point in constantly worrying about those types of things if we're going to exist and live no matter what. This type of premature worry does nothing for us. we're going to keep on moving and keep on pushing. And we either do that with that anxiety we're holding on our back, or all that worry, or all that whatever, holding it on our back, or we let it go and move freely. Either way, we have to move forward, because it's those who like are okay with their stuck, that it's those who think they found the end, that have the journey over, or it's he who thinks the journey is over that's truly lost, because it's always forward movement. All life is a continual progression. You have to keep going forward. There is no other way to go. Time doesn't stop for you. Nothing stops for you. You have to keep on moving. And if we're constantly stuck in our mind, then we'll be stuck in this place. How much action can you take from your mind? You know, you can't just think your issues away. You can't just think of a opportunity just to come to you. You have to kind of move towards that thing. You have to push towards it, or otherwise it'll cease to be. A lot of us get too comfortable in having things just brought to us, or we get comfortable in a reality of worry. We allow ourselves to be insecure and anxious because it's better to feel those types of things than to solve it and be responsible for your own success. It's easy to be held back if we separate the thing that's holding us back from us. But if we truly accept the fact that we're the ones holding ourselves back, then we're going to have no excuse to not do. I feel like that's why a lot of people separate their circumstance from who they are, because they want to blame something on an external factor. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes people might blame it on an external factor just to make a dichotomy between them and the circumstance. So they allow themselves to somewhat be a victim in their own head and allow themselves to be comfortable in this place rather than, trying to make a difference in their own life. Like, the fear and expectation of the night is kind of a funny saying, because you always know that the night is coming. There has never been a time where the night did not come. So losing your current, standing in expectation of something is ultimately not worthwhile. If you know it's going to happen, then there's no point in worrying about it. And if you don't know it's going to happen, then there's no point in assuming.